Okay, we have a few just some objectives for today. So first, we want y'all to learn what early childhood advocacy is and how it shows up in everyday life. Then we're gonna learn one or a few easy ways to get started as an advocate for young children. And by the end of the call, we want you to feel confident and know what to expect at Capitol Day and feel connected to other advocates and part of a team. A lot of all of our panelists today are still kind of in their advocacy journeys. So they offer a really great perspective and just some insight on what it takes to be an advocate and what goes into being an advocate every day. So just a quick reminder, you do not need to be a policy expert, know the bill numbers, or have all of the answers to be an advocate and to attend Capitol Day. And that's not necessarily expected from everybody. But what you do need and what is really valuable is your lived experience, your perspective, and the commitment you have for children and families. We all offer different perspectives and different approaches to how we serve children and families, and that can be really valuable because we also, like you guys provide like this real life putting a face to who is doing the work and who is going through all of these experiences. So that's really important for advocacy. It's not always about data and numbers, but to really be and do the work. So we have a little bit of an icebreaker. In the chat, we want you to put what experience, role, or perspective do you bring that could matter in advocacy, even if you have never thought of it that way before. So, an example of that would be like a child care provider who works in direct service and is with children and families every day and is seeing the impact of losing things like CCPP funding, not having parents losing their vouchers and not being able to pay for childcare, and how that has impacted their businesses. It could also be like what's it? I don't know. Well, like working families who need childcare, working parents who need childcare to go to work. So those are the examples. For me, I do not work in direct service, but I've grown kind of up in the advocacy and policy space, and I like to think that I offer new perspectives, and that I'm a younger advocate, and I'm from a younger generation. But that's kind of mine. Does anybody want to share what people are saying in the comments if they are?
We do have someone saying that it's difficult to hear. Is anyone else having issues as well? I'm looking on the back end. I'm not seeing anything. Okay. Okay. We have someone in the chat saying the importance of early intervention for children who are experiencing developmental delays. Early intervention and connected support team can really impact outcomes in positive ways.
I think that's great. Y'all can keep putting y'all's responses in the chat, but I'm gonna move forward to today's agenda. So today we put together a panel of three advocates, and they're going to talk about what advocacy really is and how we define advocacy in the early childhood space. They're also going to talk about what it was like for them to get started as an advocate, and then we'll go through what to expect on Capitol Day and their experiences with their first Capitol Day. Afterwards, we'll do a quick audience. Well, afterwards, Dr. Kathy Grace is going to talk about some diaper bills that are coming out, and then after that, we'll do a quick Q&A and then wrap up in next steps. But first, I'm going to introduce the panelists. Today, for this session, we're going to have Regina Harvey, who is a child care provider. And then hopefully, if she's here, we'll get Daisy Carter Slater. And if not, we can have Kentrell step in. And then Santee, and I'll have them introduce themselves when they first answer their questions because they are in different positions and I don't want to get it wrong. And then our moderator will be Dr. Kathy Grace. Each of these people bring lived experience, system knowledge, and years of showing up for children and families. But like I said, they are also still kind of in their own advocacy journeys. And so I think that's important. And they're very approachable and very nice. And I'll give the floor to them or Kathy.
Hello, everybody. I hope it's not as gloomy where you are. I'm in the dark with the rain pouring down. I do have the lights on, but outside it's very yucky. Uh, so I just wanted to say thank you for making the extra effort. I know you're tired and hungry, probably. So if you need to get a sandwich or something, just chomp away. You're not going to upset us. Uh, I wanted to first of all set the stage for what is advocacy. And in this regard, it is a collective voice or a group of people who speak on the same issue, we hope, and it's relationship based. And by that, we mean that, particularly in our state, most every relationship has to do with communication of either through face to face or email or a text. But it is all about establishing a sense of who you are and who you are and hopes to be with relationship to the people that you're going to be talking to. So, in other words, if you don't know your legislators or you've never had any opportunity to be in a room with them, then the only real, I would say, homework that you have before next week is to find out who they are. And Biz or Lucy One will put in the chat box the link to looking for who it is that represents you, because this little chart will tell you what county they represent, and it'll even tell you the office number that they have when they're in their office in Jackson, and an email that you could use. So if you live in DeSoto County, you can look up who that is. If you live in Hancock County, you can look it up and see who that is, because each one of you uh, have the opportunity to make your voice known to the person that you elected and the person who is to represent you. And sometimes we feel like that we don't want to bother them. Well, they wouldn't have taken the job unless they understood that they need to hear from their constituents. We also, in our case, want to talk advocacy in the sense of lived experiences. You are the best advocate for the children and for the child care industry because you live it. Every day, you're there at 5:30, 6 o'clock. You're opening the door for the children. Sometimes they're grumpy, sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're sad, but you're there for them. And the legislators need to hear the life experiences that you've had over time and that some of your parents have to go through to get to work every day. And they may have been up since 4 o'clock in the morning trying to get the house straight and the people fed before they ever got to work. So they've had two full-time jobs before they ever really got to their paid job. Uh, so please don't sell yourself short. That's the main thing. You are the expert. You may think you're not an expert in anything, but believe me, you know a lot more about child care than most any legislator that I can think of, except maybe Sheck Taylor, who was raised by a mama who had a child care facility and actually spent time in one as a child. But most of those folks, you've got a way far ahead vision and understanding of what children need and what you do to make sure that those families can get up and go to work every day. Now, we know that advocacy happens everywhere. It's not just at the Capitol. Oh, I'm going to go be an advocate for an hour today. I'm going to Jackson. You are an advocate when you go to the grocery, when you go to church, when you're out at the football game, when you're just seeing people on the street, because you are representing a big part of the development of your community. And you are representing an opportunity for the individual parent who may not be able to speak to legislators or get to Jackson. You're speaking for them. And they really depend on your voice, because your voice is one that will maybe go a little bit further or a little bit louder because you're talking for a lot of parents, not just one. So right now we're going to hear from our panel, and I think that I will go with the questions that we have prepared, and I will see if Cantrell can fill in, I believe, for Daisy, since I don't think Daisy's here yet. Cantrell, are you here and are you able?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Kathy Grace.
Okay, I know you can do this in your sleep, so I'm not too concerned about you being a little uneasy about this. And we're glad to have Regina and Santee here. So
Yes.
we're here. We will hear from all of you directly. But Cantrell, could you tell me what the word advocacy? What does that mean to you, and when did you first see yourself as an advocate?
Well, at first, getting into childcare, I wasn't quite familiar with what the job of an advocate or in advocacy is. Once I learned about that, I started understanding that I have the power as an individual to make a change on any cause that I believe in. And starting off, it was a little scary because a lot of times you are connected with people or you're next to people that know a lot of people like you, Dr. Kathy Grace. It's a lot of people in legislators and senators that you know. And I'm not one of those persons that remembers names all the time. I remember faces. But being an advocate is very simple. It's just an individual that is standing for a cause, and I know tonight on this call, we have a lot of parents. We have some childcare directors that are new to the industry. And we just want to inspire you and let you know that this is not a scary journey, that there are people that are going to be connected to you to help you understand the importance of making the stand to be an advocate.
And it's nice to know that we've got some parents with us tonight too, because they hold a special place in the advocacy world. Because, as a matter of fact, I've already had legislators say, "I want to hear what the parents have to say. I want
Yes.
to hear what the parents have to say." So, you are a key person in helping them to better understand what all of us hope for their children, your children, our children, all the children. So, Regina, when many people think of advocacy, as we said, only it happens at the Capitol, but in your life and in your early childhood space, what does advocacy look like in the community?
Well, what I've come to realize is that it is definitely a workforce issue, and it started with the hit of COVID and realizing that we are essential and that the world can't function without childcare. And so I've come to realize that people without childcare, people can't improve their circumstances, businesses can't hire, they can't expand. And then the one thing I always knew was that education in general prepares our children for the future. I mean, I've been teaching since 2003, so that's always been my thing, and I've always advocated for individual children. But now that I own a childcare, um, being faced with all the things that I've been faced in the last 8 years, I've realized that I need to step out and you know support more people, and because I am outspoken and I have a tendency to you know put myself out there for things that I'm passionate about. I get frustrated and I'm like, no, this is no, 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 no. We got to do something about this. This ain't right. So um, and it's been really bad this last year with all of the certificates being revoked, and it continues to be a constant everyday thing. And so I have learned over the year that together, the more that we work together and our voice gets louder, and
Yeah.
it's important.
Hmm.
Well, I thank you for that, and I think you made a very good point about uh, the louder the voice, sometimes the more attention we're able to garner. It's like the squeaky wheel gets the attention sometimes. Santee, what is one misconception you had about advocacy before getting involved?
Yes, ma'am. So, good evening, everyone. I would have to say one of my misconceptions is that advocacy was only for those who had policy expertise. And I always said that the policymakers were the ones who made things come into play, especially when I was younger. And I think my first capital experience was in undergrad. And so I think over time, I've really learned that advocacy is done best when there are people who have lived experience at the table, and also people who bring knowledge to how things are moving along, even beyond the legislative session. So I like to say advocacy is something that happens every day. So from the parents to the providers, especially that are on this call, I truly believe that with those everyday experiences, we are all advocates, and it doesn't have to be those with policy expertise. So I love what you shared earlier about legislators already asking, what are their parents saying? And I think that's very important. So that was one of my misconceptions, that you really had to have policy expertise. And so I'm grateful for spaces like this where we can come and gather and learn.
Thank you. Lucy, let's move on to the next slide. Uh, and I think that one question sometimes people get stuck in is, where do I start?
Right.
Uh, I don't even know how to do this. I don't even know who to talk to, or what am I supposed to do? And so I hope, are making it known that you have some helpers. You have people who are willing to, if they know it, they're willing to sit down with you and Zoom or email or phone call to help you understand the first little step you can take. And I think this afternoon, Cantrell reminded us that it's one step at a time. So don't think you've got to run a big race to just get success with this. It is one step at a time. And I would say to those of you, uh, parents and some teachers, that if you're not able to get to Jackson because of work or because of family commitments, legislators like for you to reach out and talk to them at home. So, whoever is your legislator, if you wanted to send them a text or an email, and you got the emails from that list that Biz or Lucy just put up as to all the different legislators, there's emails there. And you can just say, look, I live in your hometown. Could we get together on a Saturday morning for 15 minutes at the McDonald's? And get ready ahead of time so you know what you're talking about. But these are just people, and I always tell folks when I'm talking to them in this way, they wear underpants just like we do. So if that helps you to put yourself at ease, uh, they're no special folks. They decided that they would run for office, but that's because they thought they could contribute. But they are useless if they don't know what it is that they can work for and toward. So you have to help them do their job by saying, this is the way it is with our parents. And I want you to know this. And I think there's some solutions. Maybe you have some opportunities to offer, but we have to help these parents, or there's not going to be jobs and there won't be people working in the jobs that there are because they don't have childcare. So the next thing we're going to talk about in those next little questions is lowering the barrier to entry. So making it easier for you to have that conversation or to have a text or an email. And you feel like it's doable. You have to have that comfort feeling. And I think one of the panelists already said, you have to feel like this is yours. It's not mine. It's not Lucy's. It's not Santee's. It's your approach. And you have to put your little personality into it. And that means that you are most comfortable because it's you that is actually telling the story. Nobody else is telling it for you. That's your story and you're telling it. And when you work in the issues around policy or in a lot of different things in childcare, you know there's not a normal. I mean, we are some of the most flexible people that I know of in jobs. We can do three jobs at one time and change one in the middle of the job because we realize something else has come up. So we are very flexible in our thinking, and that's important for you to note because we may say we're going to meet in room so and so, and all of a sudden they tell us, "Well, I'm sorry, that room's been taken, so here you got to go to this room or that room," and we can't get unnerved by it because that's just the way of the world. Sometimes, if you're used to go to the grocery store and they have the aisles all laid out and you know where everything is, and then you go in one day and they have changed the aisles and you don't know where the bread is anymore, or you don't know where the cereal is because they changed it on you, and it can irritate you. But you can quickly figure out where the things are and look at it that way. You're going to be with any kind of advocacy group at a day at the Capitol. You will be with some other people. You will not be alone, and that's the one of the main messages that we want to convey. Okay, now let's hear what the panel says. All right, Regina, here we go. What helped you take your first step into advocacy, and what made that possible? I think you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Although I didn't realize it at the time, my first real step to advocacy became when I started paying attention. Um, being new into childcare, my childcare has only been open 8 years, and over the time, I began to realize that the rules and regulations that was put out by the Department of Human Services weren't only directly affecting my business and the families I serve, but they became clear that policy was not only shaping my work, but it was dictating whether families could afford care, whether I could even keep my doors open, and defining the quality of the care. So, in the beginning, I didn't really think my voice mattered. I thought these decisions were made by people far removed from, the daily realities, somebody sitting behind a desk pushing paper, that kind of thing. And I thought you needed credentials or connections or something to be able to, make a difference. And then one day came across my emails looking for people to join the advisory board for the rules and regulations. And I was like, what the heck? Let's try it. And I applied and I was accepted, and I immediately took on the secretary job. And during that, my tenure for the year that I was actually the secretary, I learned a lot, learned how all of it all works. Um, and it began to give me credibility. Um, it also opened my eyes that I could do more, that I could actually make a difference. I'm still on that board, and I still plan to make a difference with these regulations. And um, during that process, I'm not sure if I found Mila or Mila found me. I can't remember, but I feel like somehow we were connected in this process, and I realized that my story mattered, and that you know, having these people that are all saying the same thing, it really makes a difference. People are beginning to notice. Other directors that I have known for a while, they're starting to notice things because I'm constantly publishing materials on my Facebook page about what I learn, and just constantly trying to just spread the word.
Well, I think one thing you mentioned, and I want to highlight it, is that you said you started to learn. And
Mm.
so a good advocate does their research. They learn the facts and not what somebody tells them on Facebook or what Miss Jones said at the grocery store that so and so, so and so. You go to the source of whatever your question is and get as factual as you can with the information. With AI now and Facebook and all these people who I don't understand why they make up stuff, but they seem to like it to get attention or something. But when you're a credible, you mentioned credible, when you are a credible advocate, that means that people trust what you say. And so you have to be very careful in what you say, and that is based on fact. That doesn't mean don't say it. It just means make sure that you've got your boohoo covered and that you are for sure being able to back up if you are challenged by anybody. And so I'm glad you mentioned that about the information, Regina, and that you did some studying too. All right, now we're going to switch up and let Cantrell be Regina, and then we'll go to Santee. What fears, doubts, or questions did you have when you were new, and how did you work through them?
Um, I cannot say that I am fearful, that I had any fear, but I can say that being able to learn the process of advocacy was something new for me that I had to learn how to do. For instance, being able to gain the strength and the knowledge of just simple things of how do you find out who your representatives are in the House? How do you find out who your senates are? How do you write letters to them? How do you get in touch with them to be able to make a change and to let them know what you're standing for in childcare? So those were some of the things that I you know, dealt with or had doubts about when first starting in advocacy. But the collaboration of being with other people that had those strengths and that knew the process and joining with them helped me get through that those doubts that I may have had in that part. And even as just a regular person, not even looking at myself as a child care director or the number of years, just the point of being a parent and having the knowledge that I wanted to see change in my state for child care, for children, whether it's for mental health, whether it's for insurance, whether it's for getting funding to support child care. As a parent and as a teacher, you have the power in your hand to do those types of things. And as Dr. Kathy Grace stated and Regina stated, it's all about just getting on the computer and researching those things. And those things will help us be able to come together to make a larger change in the state of Mississippi.
Well, and I do want to emphasize that one of you have said about one voice. And it's very important that everyone talk to each other so that we know what that message is that that one voice is going to deliver, regardless if you're talking to DeSoto County or Hancock County or Hinds County or Noxubee County. That one voice is going to say the message that everybody needs to hear that can make the difference in how they understand. And I say understand because we live with the child care funding circumstances. If you were going to come in from somewhere else, like as being a bank teller, it would be a long, hard road for you to understand all of the different. Well, you can do it, except you know this, and then you have to have that, and then you have to. So we have to try to simplify some of the things that we think we everybody should understand. But again, this has been something over time that we have had to come to understand because we had to work with it. So I appreciate the fact that we are all of attempts to have one voice. That's what we're going to say. We have an attempt to have one voice. Santee, what is one thing you wish somebody had told you when you were a brand new advocate?
That you don't have to know everything or be everywhere in order to make a real impact. So I think the most important thing that I had to learn is that I didn't have to be at the Capitol to make a difference. Sometimes it's being in the community. So seeing myself as a parent, and now I have teenagers, but also a partner with different organizations seeing myself as a program evaluator and whatever that may look like in different capacities. But I thought I had to have everything figured out as a brand new advocate and know everything and know how legislation works. And I learned very quickly that I did not have to know that or be everywhere in order to make a real impact. So the one thing that I would share is starting your community, supporting early childhood providers, shaping lives. Think about the parents that are in the community and all that they may be experiencing in this time. And I always say that I love storytelling, so I love to hear lived experience. And so that is something that I wish I could have been a part of, especially in my advocacy journey at the beginning, so I could hear from those with lived experiences.
And I was going to add to what Santee is saying about the, being a brand new advocate, what you wish you would have known. One of the other things is that I would say too, Santee, is that having patience,
Yes.
that things do not change when you advocate overnight. There's not a
Yes.
magic button that just because I want them $10 to be directly deposited over into that voucher program so that my parents can get their voucher back, it is not
Mm-hmm.
happening overnight. I am having to be patient, prayerful, and have consistent conversations and consistent posting about my story and my parents' story so that that money can come on flow down. What you think about that, Santi?
I agree. That made me think of something I had wrote probably a few weeks ago. We were talking about the legislative session. I had to write down that advocacy is not a moment. And I think that would be something else that I had to learn is truly a marathon. So it's being consistent in that work and continue to amplify it and really see the advocacy is over time. So I wholeheartedly agree with that one.
Yes. What you think, Dr. Kathy?
I think that if there was one thing that folks could learn and that you just touched on, is that things aren't going to change as quick as you think they should. And that it is an urgent matter to you because it's urgent to the children and urgent to the family. And it can sometimes just disgust people so much that they just throw their hands up and say, I'm not going to fool with this. This is just too much. It's too nerve wracking. And it makes me sad because people don't really care. I thought they cared, but they don't. Well, we have to remember we're competing against corporations sometimes, we're competing against other big entities with big budgets. And that's why we have found our soft spot in that it has to tie into workforce. I think Regina mentioned that at the very beginning. We have to make the case that without childcare, your workers won't be at work.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have them at work, then there's not going to be production. And if you don't produce, then you're going to not have a profit. And so the best investment you can make is in your own people. And that is one of the ways to do that. Uh, we have kind of been behind the rest of the country, surprise, surprise, about understanding the connection between the workforce and the child care needs. You mentioned COVID. I would have thought we'd learned our lesson with COVID, but it seems that we have forgotten if we ever learned it. And we're also, and I will say this for having done it 30 something years, we are collectively hard headed. And I say that as a legislative definition of hard headed. So it takes a long time to change some opinions, but that just means that we have to educate those so that the younger folks can help out the older folks and that we don't run out of steam because this is, as you said, too important for us just to throw our hands up in the air and say, this is just beyond me. Because it's up to us and you particularly uh, to bring it home. And we're closer now than we used to be, believe it or not. But that still means got to got to do some of that work that we know needs to be done. So, Lucy, we'll move on to the next one. Now, I think we've done that one, haven't we? What
Mm-mm.
Capital Day is about, relationship building.
Yeah, this is the third section.
Okay, I thought we did that at the very beginning because I remember saying that we're not perfect and perfection is not perfect. So if y'all have heard this once, it could be that I remember I did this at noon. So I'm just having a burp. But we've talked about ways that you can build relationships, and we have talked about the need for relationships. If you, just like today, when I got a text from a legislator, he said, I have a daddy he's a single dad, he's got a 5-year-old nonverbal, and he doesn't know what to do. He can't find a child care facility for this boy. Well, he and I had a relationship, so he felt like he could reach out to me and that would I'd give him some accurate information, which I did. But that's the kind of thing that you don't necessarily have to agree because this legislator and I don't agree on much of anything, but we agree on some things. So you can have that conversation about different things with your legislators so that they feel like you're not best friends, but you can be trusted and you're somebody that is genuine in what you'd like and what you hope. So that relationship building can come through if you have children in the same ball on the same ball team or children in the band that you find out is they're also the children of the legislator or uh, one of the times when we had some good success with the legislator was that the director found out his wife went to high school with her. She had done a little intel, so she found out that they had that high school connection. So sometimes we call that the wife work. We find out who is the wife and if there's some connection there and make the relationship through there. But the shared living experience is what we've talked about and how you are, those of you uh, that I can't see, but all of you have lived experiences as a child care director, as a teacher, as a parent of young children, and uh, legislators, a lot of them are men. They don't know. They truly don't know because they'll say, well, my wife did it when my kids were little. Well, that's wonderful that they did, but a lot of wives are the only parent or they're working and the dad is having to get involved. Now it's a different day than when a 65-year-old man was having young children. And so you really need to make sure that your parents and that you all feel comfortable about. Let me just tell you what happened with one of my parents last week, and then just use that as a stepping stone. And we know to learn by doing. That's our own, early childhood absolute learn by doing. And that's how at the Capital Day, hopefully you'll have some opportunities to start to learn by doing at whatever speed you want to, at whatever pace, whatever amount you'd like to do. Some people like to just observe, and that's fine. Some people want to, have a little bit of a conversation. That's fine too. But this has got to be you and your personality. And remember, perfection is not the goal because we're not perfect. And the people we're talking to are not perfect. So don't beat yourself up if you say, oh, I should have said so and so, or oh, I got off track. Don't beat yourself up. You'll have other times and you'll think that that was a good lesson that you learned. So now, Lucy, I'm sorry. I'm again now going to turn it over to you so you
Yeah.
can go through the agenda.
This is just a very brief run through of the agenda. Mindy sent out a more kind of detailed one in an email with your registration, and I'll let her fill in any gaps that I miss. But registration, like check-in and registration will be at the Forum for the Futures table in the rotunda from 7:45 to 8:30. And then we'll be tabling as a group in the rotunda through 8 o'clock through 11:45. And then around 11:45-ish, it's always a little bit different. But that's when we'll have the option to be introduced to the House and Senate chambers. Not everybody has to do that if that's not to their liking, but it's something that we're able to do, and it's kind of fun to see everybody and be introduced. And then there are two Capitol tours In your registration for Capital Day, you were able to select whether or not you wanted to attend and which one you wanted to attend. So one's at 9:30 and one's at 11:30. They are all full right now, but you also have the option of doing a self-guided tour if that's something you would prefer. And then from 10 to 12, we have a room booked. It's 113, and that's where we'll meet with legislators, and we'll also be sharing a video on like from our partners with policy updates on what they're prioritizing and talking about specific bills that we'll be looking at. And then Cantrell is also going to have a storytelling element, where providers and parents will have the opportunity to tell their story, and we'll record that. And that's what happens in that room. And then from 12 to 1 will be the press conference on the stairs of the Capitol outside. And then after that, we'll meet at Galloway for the networking luncheon and the panel discussion. If you've attended this call, then you automatically can go to the luncheon. So that's my quick run through. Did I miss anything, Mindy?
That was perfect. We just like to reiterate that the 8 o'clock to 11:45 tabling at the Rotunda is like a home base for us. That's why it seems so broad and so long, but it's because, like I said this morning, it's kind of a choose your own adventure. You might step away to do the tour or step away to hear a legislator, but we will have people consistently at the table during that time.
Yes. And then these are our final panel questions, and you can take it
Oh,
away, Kathy.
I guess I just wanted to ask this for folks. If it's raining, what about the press conference? I didn't ask that this morning, but do you have a rain plan?
We don't right now, but we will make sure to have one. One year we had the press conference inside upstairs on the second floor, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll let
Mhm.
you do that sometimes. So I think I'll just double check with Capitol Facilities. But don't worry, we also, guys, have a group me that we forgot to mention this morning. If April or Mindy, if y'all could drop the group me in link in there, we would love for you to sign up for this because we're going to be sending. Sometimes it feels chaotic as thousands of people are in the Capitol. We're going to try to send messages via that. And then we can also alert you because let's be honest, everybody's inbox is swollen with emails all the time. We know it's hard to keep track. Kendra and I were talking about that today. So please, we will make sure there's a group me link in an email. But please sign up for this. And that way, if for instance, there's a plan and you happen to be in the bathroom, you'll get a message saying we're going to meet in this location. So that's just a good thing. Kathy, that's a great question. And just make sure that you've signed up for the messages so that get any plan changes last minute.
And before I
We've
forget,
got
before we go into the Capital Day questions, if I forgot to say, like for the newbies that are on here, whether they're a parent, whether they're a teacher, or whether they're in childcare as experienced childcare director, is there a way that we could drop the information as to how they could follow a bill and be knowledgeable about different things that we're standing for before we go to Capitol Day?
Yes, well,
I
we're
think
gonna
that's a Biz or Lucy question there.
yeah, we
Okay.
have the build tracker, and I'm sure Biz is dropping that right now. Also, I'll talk about it more towards the wrap up, but during while we're in that 113 room, we'll be sharing a video from our partners, hopefully made up of clips from our partners talking about their policy priorities and which bills they're kind of focusing on, and then that will be a space for us to talk about those bills as well.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes left. I'm mindful, Lucy. I'm watching the time. Uh, now, this is a double question for both Regina and Santee. What was your first Capital Day experience like, and what surprised you the most?
Do you want me to go first?
Now, y'all don't fight it out.
I'm
Just
gonna say
Okay.
that works. That works, Miss Regina. You're fine.
Okay, I'll go first. Um, well, my first Capital Day experience was awesome. It was a wonderful learning experience. I highly recommend you do the Capitol tour. I'd never been to the Capitol before. It's absolutely beautiful and it's amazing. The grandeur is just amazing. There's lots of history in that building, and I'm just like a Mississippi history buff, so I actually ate it up. So that was a lot of fun. The one thing that surprised me that day was when we were actually sitting in session. I looked around and the legislators were disengaged. Some were on their phones, some were reading papers, some were talking among themselves. Even when another legislator got up to talk about their bill, people still remained disengaged, and it it really started to bother me. I'm like, what is happening here? And so I started questioning, like, how do the legislators vote on these bills? How do they know what they're voting for? I also learned during this process that some of these bills are really, really big and they don't have time to read the whole thing. So how do they know that there's not something hidden in the message? So it just reinforced for me how important my voice, my story, and my collective effort with everyone else is important. How we constantly are saying, look, you need to pay attention to this. This is important. And so that's kind of what reinforced it for me was just actually seeing it and sitting back and watching.
Well, Santee, what would you like to say about that first experience?
So I definitely agree with Miss Regina about the disengagement that I saw. So I went to my first Capitol Day in during my undergrad at Southern Miss. And so we went as a student government association just to really see how the sessions were ran, meet some of the legislators. We had a luncheon, but I remember we had a brief training really to learn more about how the legislative process work, what is a bill, all those things. And so for me, I would have to say my first Capitol Day experience, I think I thought I wanted to be a policymaker, and then I decided at that moment, this may not be for me, because I remember being on the Judicial Committee at Southern Miss, and it was very eye-opening, and just to see the legislators kind of move throughout the session. I think I was nervous meeting legislators as well at that time, being an undergraduate student. But now that I reflect on it, I've been to probably more than 7 Capitol days. It gets easier over time. And I think it's because I am amongst those who have been doing the work long before me, which has helped. And I truly am grateful for that. And I think also truly understanding that those with lived experience contribute as well. So that is very important to me and near and dear to my heart because I come from a public health background. And so when I go to Capitol Days, honestly, yes, I'm there to be and I'm there to advocate, but I'm also there to really lean in, learn and listen to those who have lived experience and those who have really been doing the work. So that was my first Capitol Day experience. And we were happy to be there.
Well, let's see. Cantrell, have you got anything? I think I'm looking and I think now it's your turn to comment on whether or not there was an experience that you wanted to speak to, but also to ask you, because all three of you have this, when talking with your legislators, what helps you feel confident or grounded?
For me, it's knowing that that legislator or that senator is a mom. She is they are dads. They go to church. They eat at some of the same restaurants that I eat at, that they're literally regular people. And sharing my story of what I'm experiencing in the childcare industry is what gets to the hearts and the minds of them. Now, one of the things that I said earlier is when in sharing your story in the Capitol, they move quite swiftly. So you've got to have that pitch ready. I learned that from Dr. Kathy Grace. Um, so um, and just talking to them, they're there wanting to hear, especially from the parents. When we're talking about childcare, they really want to hear your stories and to understand what you're experiencing, right now in this journey of childcare.
Well, and I would say quickly that for parents and for teachers, providers, when you tell your story, make sure that you've got it pretty well down to about 2 minutes, because that's about the length of time that they're going to be able to stay with you and pay attention. So you don't want to get off track and you don't want to wander around. So your main message, whatever that is, you need to get it where you can spit it out. And then if they have some questions, that'll give them a chance to ask you any questions. So I just wanted to help you think about organizing your thoughts when you do speak with somebody. Now, Santee, what do you think success looks like for a first time uh, visitor or first time attendee at the Capitol Day?
So I truly believe that success really looks like showing up, being able to speak up and speak out. And I think also for me, I had to learn that not only am I planting seeds for today, but also for those seeds to continue to grow even in the future. So even as that first time attendee being there, and you may be there to observe, success really looks like being in the space, taking the time to lean in and learn. And I think also whatever seeds you are planting, you are participating in that process. And so that may mean that you're going beyond Capital Day. That means that you may be sitting on an advisory council, an advisory coalition, and doing the work even beyond the Capitol and in your community. So I think continuing that momentum is very important. And I think everybody has touched on this. Dr. Kathy Graves, Miss Regina, and Miss Cantrell, like being able to research and learn what's actually happening. So I truly appreciate when information is shared via email and I can look that up. And so I think success, even as a first time attendee, is really you keeping that momentum going, because advocacy is truly a journey. And Ms. Cantrell said it earlier, it's not this one and done thing. It is something that builds over time. And so relationships and connections.
Well, thank you so much. And Lucy, I know it's just almost time to quit, but I know you got one more slide, I think. And this is what I've asked for everybody to look at. We have three bills, and this is at a request of the Delta Diaper Bank. Ms. Presley has worked for 3 years to try to get this passed, and it seems to be a straightforward, easy to understand. We have a lot of parents who are strapped for funds, and diapers are a necessity. You have to have diapers when you have a baby. There's no other way around it. And if we can just get elimination of the sales tax on diapers, that will save a family $70 a year approximately for one baby. If you have two babies in diapers, then you would multiply that. But if you've been to the shopping at Walmart lately or anywhere and just happened to glance at how much diapers cost, it is quite staggering. And when you add the formula to that, then that really pushes you off, plus the child care cost, then it is a very stressful time sometimes for our parents. So you've got the bills down there. HB 281, 491, 797, and you can look those up on the tracker that Lucy and Biz have gotten fixed up for us. And we will have this little flyer for those of you who want to have something to carry around with you and talk with certain representatives about this. And we do a little intel. You talk about Santee, you talk about research. We try to find out who's got a baby, which legislators have a baby, so that gives them more of an understanding about, hey, yeah, we could use that. You're right. So that helps get something a little bit a leg up on an interest in that. So I'll turn it back to Lucy now and Biz, and I just want to again thank you all. Do you have any questions, comments?
And you can comment them or just speak out.
Well, the panel must have done a fine job. You've answered everything anybody would want to know.
I will say we had some questions in our earlier session today about like how to dress when you go to the Capitol. And the answer we kind of all agreed on was usually business casual and wear comfortable shoes because you will be kind of walking around. And so it's important that we're comfortable, but like we look professional. And then also parking. April might be better at explaining that whole situation if she's still here.
I am. Hello, everybody. Parking for the Capitol. You can normally park. It's a parking lot off of High Street in the corner. We're going to send out parking information, but it's my suggestion that you get there early and do not park where you see the green markers for the legislatures because they will tow your car. But there are plenty of parking spaces around the Capitol, but just get there early and we will send like a Google map that lets you know where to find the parking spot exactly because right now at 6:30 I can't think of it. But it is. You can't find parking, just arrive, get there pretty early.
And I think Biz reminded people to bring an umbrella in case it's going to rain so you have something to keep from getting drenched.
Yes.
And I'd like to just encourage all directors that are on the call. I know that there are some parents on the call and teachers on the call too. That Capital Day is not a scary thing. It's not something that you got to just have this legislative or policy mind about. Just come, just show up. Your presence will be very received, and you will get an opportunity to see how the policymakers move around in the Capitol. You'll be able to see how Mela is fostering this opportunity to stand on business and to help us in this journey of childcare. And I want to also express to tell your other colleagues that are in childcare if they didn't get an invitation or didn't get the email about Capital Day, they could visit the website, right, Lucy? They may put that down in the chat. I know those that are on here had to have already been members to get it, but spread the message about Capital Day. Get your parents involved. Our school is, just to the directors that are on the call, our school is closing down half a day for our 3s and our 4-year-old programs, and we're collaborating with our parents. Not just our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents are going to be there in full force in t-shirts so that the legislators and the senators will be able to hear their voice and be able to hear their stories. So it's not a scary thing. Just like April said, find a park, grab a water bottle and some comfortable shoes, and I promise you will enjoy, enjoy, enjoy.
Thank you, Kendra. I think that helps me wrap up the call. That taps on all of our kind of key points. The key takeaways advocacy starts with your lived experiences, and everyone begins somewhere. Capital Day is a learning space, and it is not scary like Kendra is preaching. And then you will have the coalition support through MELA, through the forum, and through your other childcare providers that will be with you and parents. We have just a couple next steps. Watch out for that upcoming policy priority video. It will also be shared at the Capitol. Stay connected with the forum for the future if you aren't already. And then I think we're also going to put, I can't think of what it's called again, but in the chat, Biz might drop where you can find your legislators. There's a portal that's very helpful. And just the most important thing is show up as yourself and know that your voice already matters and that you have the perspective and all of the equipment you need to be an advocate. But I think that sums up our call.
Thanks to all our panelists and for all of you who are spending your evening with us.